Good evening, film fans. I realized in making these reviews that I haven't included a whole heck of a lot of LGBTQ films or material, and I am a supporter of the community. So, although I'm not gay myself, I support gays and lesbians and bis. My former fiance was trans, so uh, I wanted to include some more films, and one of them that I think is quite funny and really bizarre is 2018's Codename Codename Dynastud. It's basically I almost can't describe this film. It's a broad parody slash satire. Basically, kind of a James Bond spoof and kind of not. And it was directed by a guy named Richard Griffin and partly written by him as well. Um, and it's actually got five writers. Whenever I see more than one writer on a movie, I start to go, because basically you should only need one. And I know I've written some film scripts myself, none of them have been produced, but I know how to write one. And I think if you're a good enough writer, you don't need, people. Though I understand that with comedy, you might want to have some different voices. Uh, so it was written by like Richard Griffin, Scott Phillips, Jill Poisson, um, Lenny Scor- uh, Lenny Schwartz, and Michael Verratti. And Michael Verratti is also in the film in a minor bit role. Um, and it stars principally Anthony Gaudette plays the character called Dynastud, which I think is it's a funny name, and Derek Lorendo, I guess it's pronounced Lorendo, plays Bart, our hero, as it were. Um, Candace Sampson plays Patty, kind of a slutty senator's daughter, and uh, Mark Andrew Garner plays Bruce Lee, and that's L.I. Bruce Lee, who is supposed to be a martial arts expert, but not the same. And Bruce Church plays this wonderfully over-the-top character called Senator Hightower, and so it starts out. Again, I'm not going to give away the whole plot, but it starts out with a very interesting scene about a kind of an evil. It says it takes place in 2024, and homosexuality has been banned completely in the United States by a radical right-wing president, though they don't specifically say who it is. They do mention the word MAGA, though, so that gives you a clue. And anybody who's caught is sent to, in doing homosexual acts is sent to prison, and or I guess in some cases executed. But it starts out with this character Dynastud, who's played by Anthony Gaudette, talking to a very evil, kind of like a terrorist, and this terrorist wants to install a really radical right-wing president. He has three potential candidates to choose from, and he reviews them with Dynastud, who he thinks is again also a terrorist, and he doesn't realize he's on a covert operation to seek out, eliminate this guy, and so he goes through the three candidates. One of them's kind of a redneck, another one's just sort of a doofus, kind of like a preacher character, right-wing preacher, and the last one is this guy, Senator Hightower, who shoots the other two guys. Says, "You two guys are queer for each other." He shoots. That's all he does in this movie. He, like, whenever somebody goes against him or does something he doesn't like, he shoots him in the head. And like the guy beats him in the chest, he shoots him in the head. One of his secretary says something that he doesn't like, and shoots her in the head. Way over the top kind of stuff. But anyway, the terrorist picks Senator Hightower, obviously, as the person that he wants to elect, and then Dynastud, rips off his clothes and has, sex with him, behind a screen. You don't see anything. And then his head explodes. And I wonder what the heck is that? Why did his head explode? And then, he's going to go on to his next target. Then the titles roll. The titles are very funny. The titles are a deliberate parody on Saul Bass's iconic, James Bond titles, except instead of girls, draping themselves all over James Bond, it's like, partially naked guys draping themselves all over Anthony Gaudette. And it says Oscar Wilde's Dynastud. Of course, Oscar Wilde never attached his name to anything that was directly gay because he couldn't at the time. He would have been thrown in prison. And he was eventually thrown in prison. But I thought that was kind of an interesting, funny little gag on, Ian Fleming's James Bond. Um, and I thought from there on it was going to be like a straight kind of a James Bond parody, but it wasn't. It goes all over the place. It's completely wild. It starts out with again, this Senator Hightower wants his sort of slutty daughter Patty to marry somebody, and his subaltern says, "Well, why don't you get somebody from the prison, and then you can threaten them that if they don't marry her, you'll, you know, have them executed." And he picks Bart, who has been thrown in prison because he had sex in a bar with a guy who was a plant. He was a MAGA police agent, and they take him out of prison. He's supposed to marry, this daughter played by Candace Sampson, and he can't do it. The wedding night, he just can't do it, and he jumps out the window, and outside the window is Dynastud waiting for him with his shirt off, and he says, "Do you have a cool car or something, or a motorcycle we could escape on?" He says, "No, I don't have anything." He says, "Oh, damn." He says, "How did you get here?" He says, "Well, my gaydar told me that somebody from the gay community was in danger." He has this voice inside his head that talks kind of like Kit from Knight Rider, and but it's his gaydar. That's really funny. Again, given that this is a parody and that it's not meant to be taken seriously for a moment, there actually are some kind of negative gay and lesbian stereotypes in here, which I thought was a little bit shocking. But again, since it's not supposed to be taken, at face value, I think that's, just, again, trying to ramp up the silliness a bit. There are these two really bungling agents who are sent after Bart, because again the senator wants him to marry his daughter, and Bart and Dynastud, and they're pretending that they're gay, and they use like really stereotype, cliche images. Like one of them dresses like the Indian from the Village People, and the other guy dresses like the construction worker. They go into a gay bar, and they're like immediately, outed by people who realize that they're not, gay, and they're confronted by these lesbians from the Katie Lang fan club, who are really funny, and they basically beat them to death. But so then they have to keep trying to escape. And they're going to go to Canada because it's not illegal to be gay in Canada, and then you learn a little bit about Dynastud's backstory because he's telling it to Bart as they're trudging through the woods of Canada trying to escape. And they do like a parody of the Green Lantern origin, where Dynastud was a little kid, and he met up with this alien who accidentally came to Earth. He didn't want to go to Earth, he wanted to go to another planet. He said, "I'm supposed to give them superpowers." He said, "Well, why don't you give me the superpowers?" He says, "Well, all right," and he agrees to it. He says, "But I have to warn you." He says, "Oh, yeah, whatever, go away." He won't let him tell him the warning. And then they explain that years later, when he went to make love to his first lover, after he had an orgasm, the guy's head exploded, and that's the curse. The curse is that he cannot have an orgasm without his lover dying, and the only way to fix this, he explains to Bart, is there's his future lover was named like Bruce Lee beat Bruce Li, and he was transported somehow to the future. They have to go to the future and find him, and Bart has some sort of his cum can literally liberate Dynastud from this curse. But he has to make love to Bruce Lee, and he says, "Oh, all right." They go on this spaceship. This just gets really wild, and the story gets completely nuts. They go on a spaceship that's Canadian, and there's a big button that says, "Do not press A." And you find out later that the spaceship is full of maple syrup. It has like billions and billions of gallons of these jars of maple syrup. Meanwhile, we find out that Senator Hightower has been working on something called Project Cobra. What Project Cobra is, it's a gun that's like a laser, but it can change gay people to straight. Again, that's really funny. It's like parody on the James Bond villain weapons, but and he has a spaceship too, and he pursues them and damages their ship, and manages to like teleport aboard, and he shoots Dynastud with this conversion beam. And now he says, "I just want to go watch football games." And he doesn't want to, again, these are kind of sort of, over the top, stereotype, goofy things. And Now he can't, do it with Bruce Lee, which was gonna liberate him from the curse. So Bart has to do it instead. A little bit of a technical mistake made here. I'm not very familiar, and I'm not familiar at all with gay sex positions, but I know that two gays facing each other, that doesn't work. Unless you're a contortionist or you were like hung like Seabiscuit. But they had a scene like that, and I thought, well, that's not realistic. But again, that doesn't matter because this is just so goofy. Dynastud actually, he confronts the senator. He's going to push this button. He says, "No, no, don't do that. If you do it, it'll flood the United States with maple syrup." And he does it anyway. And the proprietor of the spaceship says, "Oh, everybody's in America is dead now, eh?" Again, the way she says it is just so funny. And you see like this big wave of maple syrup washing over people, like something out of a Godzilla movie. But the special effects in this movie are really, really cheesy. But again, intentionally so. And then again, Dynastud, because he's no longer gay, he can't make it with Bruce Lee, but he tells Bart, "You have to do it. You're the one who was chosen in the prophecy," or whatever. And so he does, and he says it's not enough. The wormhole isn't opening. You have to participate, Dynastud. And he says, "I can't. I'm not gay anymore." And, the Patty, the senator's daughter, says, "Well, don't you realize that if a woman's watching, it's not really gay?" And he says, "Oh, I didn't realize that." So he does participate, and the wormhole opens. Now they're going to go back into the past and erase all of these radical measures and restore history. A very funny movie, very goofy, wacky, silly. Really, special effects that are like grade C, but very fun, and I highly recommend it.